So you can perform multiple chain operations on a string now from the same line. That's super nice. I know I'm going to be using that a ton, like a ton.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Why? I mean, why do you think you're gonna be using it so much, though?
because string sanitization is one of the big jobs that I have. Like one of the things that I have to do whenever we get any new project is sanitizing strings. And we use because of our business, we use slugs for everything as well. So we have to sanitize the string, trim it, and then slug it, and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
It's also a monolithic
I didn't
system.
think
There,
about that. That would be good use of that. Yeah.
as a monolithic system, there are places where we have to put in kludges and say, oh, this thing has to be updated inline. We can't update it in the database.
Mm-hmm.
So do a string edit on it or stuff like that. It's just I know that I use the string class quite a bit.
Yeah, I was actually watching Jeffrey Way's video on the new blade syntax that you can use, and now I have an internal dilemma because they have this new syntax you can use, and basically the way Jeffrey Way showed using it just kind of replaced the old way of doing blades, where you were yielding content and yielding different sections. And it's like,
Right.
wow, I really like this new approach, but I don't know, I'm kind of worried to use it, and then developers not understanding what I'm doing it, because it although I think it looks better and I think it's easier to read, I can see somebody who's well versed in Blade syntax looking at this saying, "What's happening here? This doesn't make sense." And a lot of it comes in the real power of it comes with these components that you just drop a new component in a component directory, and you can reference that component without it does that like a dynamic link to it, where if you like say you drop a component called alarm.blade.php, you can actually reference that in like a layout just by saying alarm, and it knows to go in the component directory and get that slot. um it's really cool. I again, this project I was working on, I just converted my main layout over to it. It's like, man, I like the way this looks, I like the way it feels, but I don't know, I'm worried about A, if it's going to stick around. B, if this was really how it was meant to be used, because in reading the documentation, uh, it doesn't really read like, hey, this is kind of a replacement for the existing blade syntax. It's just, oh, hey, if you want to use the syntax for slots and stuff, you can. But it wasn't really like the documentation doesn't really give you the feeling like, oh, hey, just abandon that old way of doing it, and use this new method because it's better or anything.
Yeah, you have to follow Laracast to get that information. Just
Yeah.
is how's this being done now by Jayway?
And you've been listening to Laravel Ugly. I'm your host, John Congdon.
John's just upset because he doesn't work on any Laravel projects.
I
Oh,
do,
He's just
and I tried upgrading the one that I wrote last year, uh, and it crashed. So I don't know what happened.
I'm sure you're probably
well,
many versions behind.
it'd be helpful with that. The new artisan test feature. Uh,
What is
it's
Oh,
just
that?
a
nice
it's
way to crowbar another story in there.
Thank you. Well, no, it's not another story. It's just another part of the 7.0
Dude,
release.
I'm fading fast.
It's just
I
it's a
know. I was trying to
fancy
help you out,
interface.
but
It's a fancy interface to PHP unit. It just gives things a little more pretty output to the console.
Mm.
Um, and then besides that, little tweaks, little features, little optimizations. Apparently, routing is much faster, or cached routing is
Oh,
much faster.
I tell you what, I do love using Laravel framework. I mean, I've never wavered much. Did you see what happened today? So in that new in the new Blade syntax, uh, it has a way to do like this inline syntax for a component where you can just add your HTML into a render method.
Right.
And Jeffrey Way said, "Hey," on Twitter, basically said, "Hey, what's his name? The guy who does Livewire. We just had him. I mean, I am so foggy right now.
Was it Carlos?
It was C. Caporzio or something.
Caleb Porzio.
Caleb. He said, "Hey, Caleb, did you see this new feature in the Blade syntax with inline syntax, where you can add the inline? This would be totally awesome in Livewire." And like an hour later, he replies, "Done." Like, you gotta love this fucking community, man. It's
puts us all to shame.
I hate every last one of them who just kick out these fantastic packages and have time to just like make enhancements on the fly.
See, I'm just trying
so
to keep up with the
envious.
Mythical Man month where I have 10 lines of code a day and that's it.
All right. All right. We gotta wrap
All right.
up. I am.
Eric's more tired than John, so that means we have to go.
I gotta go. I can't remember things. We did have an OBS crash. If anybody happened to catch back up, looks like we have one person might have been caught us. Don't know what's going on with OBS. I apologize. Obviously out of my control. I did upgrade my Mac and upgrade it to latest OBS. Hopefully they figure it out and get it fixed. As always, we want to thank our Patreons. I don't know if this list is still current. I really should go through and update that as well. But if we do still have Patreons out there, we appreciate you.
Very much. We very much appreciate you. And I will be posting a couple pictures on our Patreon page of the home entertainment center PC that I've finally finished and got working.
I'm gonna start posting pictures of my dog, the office manager.
I should do that too. I've got some great dog pictures.
I'm telling you. Okay, that's it. We're wrapping up episode 181, PHP Ugly. I am Eric.
I'm John. What?
I'm Tom.
Keep it ugly.
Keep it ugly.
Because it sounded so well when I edited it the last time. I said, I'm Eric. I'm John. I'm Tom. Keep it ugly. It really sounds good. You need to listen to the See, this is just nastiness. You need to listen to the actual podcast where we clean it up. We all sound so much more intelligent on that show than this one.
Maybe I've been listening to the editing for too long. I disagree heartily. I sound awful every time I listen to it.
This last week's show, I really cleaned up well. Like the whole misinformation of who was behind Tailwind UI. So it actually sounded like, basically, Tom, you knew what you were talking about.
We knew what we were talking about? Nice.
Well, it was you. It was you, basically, yeah. So
nice.
It all cleans up. Like I said, the end, it was like, I'm Eric, I'm John, I'm Tom, and then I get all the uglies lined up.
Yep.
Hey, go ahead and stop the recording.
Right.
Kiddo.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I'm gonna do that too.
He called me kiddo. He just wants to close his browser. He went to close his browser. He's like, oh, wait a minute.
Check to make sure he didn't do that already.
Stop local recording this time. I left local recording running last week all night. I was like, man, I hope Zencaster worked because this is gonna suck. Alright, nobody's watching, so I'm gonna kill the stream before it crashes again.
Alrighty.
I did